In the alleys of ancient Mecca, where the stones still echoed with the footsteps of passers-by and the soft songs of women at sunset, a small child walked hesitantly, holding the hem of a relative's garment. They approached a modest home. At the door stood a man whose face bore the light of nobility and whose eyes overflowed with the compassion of a father. He opened his arms and embraced the boy. He entered the home of Abu Talib, and though his face softened, his eyes held a deep and quiet wonder that no words could capture. Days passed, and the boy was seen with a staff, walking toward the outskirts of Mecca where silence was broken only by the steps of a goat or the stirring of the wind. One day, beneath the shade of a tall oak tree on a hill overlooking Mecca, he sat quietly. Silence in his presence carried a melody of its own, as though he was communing with an invisible angel, listening to a command not yet written. Then came the journey to Syria, his first with the caravan, alongside his uncle. In the outskirts of Basra, under the shadow of an old stone monastery, stood a monk named Bahira. From his narrow window, he watched many caravans pass. But that day, his gaze halted upon a quiet boy who walked differently from the others. On the boy's head was a light, not seen by the eyes, but felt by the hearts. Bahira came out and stood before the child. Turning to his uncle, he asked, "Who is this?" Then he whispered, with a trembling voice filled with awe and fear, "O Abu Talib, take him back. There is the light of prophethood on his face. By God, I have never seen among the sons of men anyone who matches the descriptions of the one foretold, except this boy." Muhammad returned to Mecca, but he was no longer the same. His face now carried both modesty and majesty. The marketplace buzzed, not with tales of prophets, but of his honesty, his loyalty, his silence that spoke of wisdom. When people asked about him, the elders would answer before the youth, "That is the truthful, the trustworthy." One day, an old woman struggling to carry water caught his eye. He stepped forward to help her, saying nothing, then walked away. A weathered merchant saw this and raised his hand toward the sky, declaring with certainty, "It is he. By God, it is him." In a house in Mecca sat Khadijah bint Khuwaylid, listening to the words of her loyal servant Maysarah, who had accompanied Muhammad on a trade journey. His words poured forth with wonder, "My lady, never have I seen a man more truthful, gentler in nature, or more merciful in character." Days later, she invited him and spoke with both wisdom and grace, "I've heard much that pleases and amazes about you. Will you take my trade caravan to Syria?" He didn't answer with many words. A simple nod in calm dignity was enough, a gesture that would one day blossom into a home, a peace, and a sanctuary for a prophet being prepared for the greatest mission. That second journey to Syria unfolded with Muhammad now more mature. He led the caravan not as a mere shepherd, but as a man who knew the way, and whose very presence brought assurance. His steps were not heavy, they bore a sacred grace, a light within granted by the one who bestows wisdom. He returned with abundant profit, but greater than gold was the reputation he carried and the praise of those who accompanied him. In those days, Khadijah watched carefully. She heard, saw, and contemplated a matter of great weight. A woman of Quraysh, intelligent and noble, seasoned in trade and dignity, yet never had she seen among the men of Mecca what she saw in Muhammad. When she heard Maysarah's account and witnessed his character firsthand, she herself sought his hand in marriage. It was uncommon among Quraysh, yet not improper when it came from a woman like Khadijah. In a gathering, the contract was written, the words read, and joy filled the room. Muhammad, still in the prime of youth, stood beside Khadijah, chosen not for wealth, but for trust and purity. In a humble home in Mecca, a new chapter of life began. The house was modest in size, but vast in love and unwavering affection. Days passed, and they were blessed with a son, Al-Qasim. The home filled with the laughter of the child. Muhammad would cradle him, kiss him, breathe in his scent, and whisper, Mercy itself lies in this little one. But the child did not live long. He grew ill, his cheeks faded, and day by day, his small body weakened. One sorrowful night, he passed away. His father held him, closed his eyes, and buried him with his own hands. In the cemetery's corner, Khadijah sat silently, clutching a piece of her son's cloth. Years passed, and light continued to fill the house of prophethood. One of the greatest blessings was the birth of Ali ibn Abi Talib, inside the sacred Kaaba, in a moment unlike any before it. His mother, Fatima bint Asad, carried him to Abu Talib's home, but it was the Prophet who first embraced him, named him, and raised him in his own household, feeding him, nurturing him, and shaping his soul. Ali was young but sharp, a fast learner, drawn deeply to truth, and captivated by Muhammad to the point he rarely left his side. He sat with him beneath palm trees, listened to his wisdom, and watched his actions. The Prophet did not teach him with lengthy words, but through example, planting values like one sows palms into fertile soil. Yet Mecca remained drenched in idolatry, the Kaaba encircled by lifeless stone gods. Muhammad could hardly bear the sight, walking around them silently, his heart burdened with sorrow. And beside him, Ali walked, sensing in his cousin's gaze a silent refusal of this corrupted state. In the heart of Mecca, where deceit was common and honesty was rare, shone the light of a man unlike any other, Muhammad ibn Abdullah. He was known for his unshakable truthfulness, unmatched trustworthiness, and gentle character. When he made a promise, he fulfilled it. When people entrusted him with their belongings, he safeguarded them. In trade, he never cheated, never deceived. He earned with the blessing of honesty, not through manipulation or flattery. And he was compassionate toward the poor, sitting among them in the marketplace, feeding the hungry, clothing the needy, smiling at them with sincere kindness. He gave without expecting thanks or praise. Kindness was simply part of who he was. All of Quraysh knew his noble character, until one day, bloodshed nearly erupted as they rebuilt the Kaaba. When they reached the place of the black stone, each tribe argued over who deserved the honor of placing it. The tension rose. Then someone suggested, "Let us appoint the first man who enters this gate as our judge." And it was Muhammad who walked in. Joyfully, they cried, "This is the trustworthy one, we accept him." With wisdom, he called for a cloth, placed the stone upon it, and said, "Let each tribal leader hold a corner." Together, they raised it, and once it reached its spot, the Prophet lifted the black stone with his own blessed hands and set it in place. Thus, the fire of conflict was extinguished, and peace returned to Mecca, not by the sword, but by the virtue of a man whose truth and mercy commanded hearts. In the hush of night, the Prophet would leave his home, climb the Mount of Light, and retreat to the cave of Hira, far from the noise of the world. There, he would reflect upon creation, recall the stories of prophets past, and pray with a trembling soul, preparing for a momentous call inching ever closer. He would ascend the cave on moonlit nights, accompanied only by the mountain's stillness and the whisper of wind. He sat long, praising and contemplating, eyes cast toward the stars, as though seeking among them a promise from the heavens. Khadijah knew of his solitude, never objected, always preparing provisions with a faithful heart and waiting for his return in quiet trust. And there, on the edge of the cave, amid the silence of the mountains, the chill of night, and the moon's gentle light, Muhammad would whisper to his Lord, filling his chest with hope, lifting his eyes to the sky he long saw as a vessel of secrets and inspiration. The earth lay still beneath him, but his heart moved toward a light unseen, whispering that the time had come near. And here, the scene ends. The page of reflection closes, and what mankind has never known is about to begin. Until this point, Mecca was preparing, the cave was waiting, and the revelation was near.